Hi, today's lesson is about multiplication shortcuts. Objective, I can use shortcuts to help memorize multiplication math facts. The first one we're going to talk about is the turnaround shortcut. In this shortcut, if you know one fact, for example, 4 times 3 equals 12, then you can do the turnaround shortcut. If 4 times 3 equals 12, when you flip it around, 3 times 4 is also going to equal 12. If we look at a couple more examples, if 6 times 2 is equal to 12, and I flip around these numbers, and now 2 times 6 is also equal to 12. 7 times 4, if I know that this is 28, then I know that 4 times 7 is also 28. This is very helpful, especially for when we take our 2-minute time tests. If you know your facts very quickly, you can look for the turnaround of that fact, and then you will have your answer very fast. We can show this by using an array. So if we draw an array, it's going to show us that we would have the exact same answer. So for example, if I do 2 times 4. I can do 2 rows of 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's my first row. And I can do a second row of 4. And then if I go and do the turnaround rule, instead of 2 rows of 4, I can do 4 rows of 2. 1, 2. There's 1 row of 2. Here is another row of 2, and another row of 2, and another row of 2. So if I show that, if I get my pen and write that down, the first thing I did was 2 rows of 4, so that would be 2 times 4, which equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then doing the turnaround of that would be 4 times 2, which equals 2, 4, 6, 8. If you notice, my answer is the same, even though I've turned my numbers around. All it does when you do an array is it flips the direction of your array, but your answer stays the same. The next shortcut we're going to talk about is the multiplication by 0. Any number times 0 is always going to equal 0. Here's an example with some story problems. There are 10 cookies in a box. You have 0 boxes. How many cookies do you have? The answer is 0. If I don't have any boxes, then I'm not going to have any cookies. This would be a great example to think about at the grocery store, right? If you go to Cub Foods, they probably have lots of packages of cookies with 10 in a box. But you yourself, if you don't take any of those boxes off the shelf, then you're going to have 0 cookies. Another example, there are 0 cookies per box, but you have 10 boxes. How many cookies do you have? Again, your answer is going to be 0. This really means you're going to have a lot of empty boxes, right? If you have 10 boxes of cookies, here they all are, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. There's my 10 boxes, but every box has 0 cookies in it. Maybe I had a big party and everybody gobbled up these cookies. Then I'm going to have 0 cookies left. So in a multiplication number model, if you had something like 6 times 0, any number times 0 is always going to give you an answer of 0. The next shortcut we're going to talk about is the familiar fact shortcut. 1s, 2s, 5s, and 10s. Any number multiplied by 1 stays itself. Any number multiplied by 2 is an even number. Any number multiplied by 5 ends in a 5 or a 0. And any number multiplied by 10 ends in a 0. Here's some examples of each of these kinds of problems. The first one is the multiplying by 1 shortcut. 8 times 1. Any number times 1 is always going to give you the number you start with. This is really saying I have one number 8, which means I have 8. Okay, another one, 100 times 1. I really am saying I have 100, okay, which gives me the number 100. So remember that anytime you see something times 1, your answer is always going to be what you started with. The next one, anything times 2 is going to give you an even number. 3 times 2 is 6, and 4 times 2 is 6. Anything multiplied by 2 gives me an answer that is even. Even means I could break it in half and not have any leftover parts. Any number multiplied by 5 is going to always end in a 5 or a 0. 2 times 5 is 10. Notice this number ends in a 0. If I do 5 times 5, my answer is 25. It always ends in a 5. If I'm taking a time test and I write an answer down and I, for example, say I write 24, I would know that's not a correct answer because anything that's multiplied by 5 should end in a 0 or a 5. And my last rule, any number multiplied by 10 is going to end in a 0. 4 times 10 is 40, and 3 times 10 is 30. Both of these numbers end in zeros. This is a quick way to check when you're taking a fact time test or when you're just solving a math problem. If you know these quick, simple rules, it's a good way to check and see if your answer is correct. Now you're going to practice some of these facts with some quiz questions. This was a shorter lesson today, so there are 4 questions instead of 3. Here's quiz question number 1. This one has 2 parts, part A and part B. You need to make sure you write them both in your notebook. On the quiz, I'm going to label them question number 1, part A, and question number 1, part B. Part A says, what is 3 times 7? Part B, what is 7 times 3? This one uses the turnaround rule shortcut. Please pause the video so you can write your answer. Quiz question number 2. What is 1 million times 0? This question uses the 0 shortcut. Quiz question number 3. What is 99 times 1? This uses our 1 shortcut. And your final quiz question for today is quiz question number 4. What is 5 times 10? Once you are finished, please put your answers into the quiz, and I will see you back in class soon.